It seemed like an ordinary workday, with nothing to suggest the impending chaos, until a frantic phone call shattered the calm. It was her mother-in-law, screaming into the receiver. "Where is she? I'll rip all her hair out." She continued, her voice laced with fury. "We broke down the door at her dasha. We wanted to celebrate New Year's there, and then... A trap. Your brother is in the hospital." Her husband immediately rushed away from work, and together they sped off to confront the situation. However, what awaited them behind the door of their own apartment left them utterly aghast, their faces drained of color. Hello, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. I'm thrilled to present a captivating new story. Enjoy the listen. Capitolina had never been fond of boisterous celebrations. For her, New Year's evoked the scent of tangerines, the gentle crackling of candles, and classic films on television. But everything changed after her marriage to Dennis. His mother, Elvira Markovna, considered herself the supreme orchestrator of family gatherings and insisted that the newlyweds celebrate every holiday at her three-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. It was always a crowded affair. Dennis's younger brother, Roman, with his wife, cousins, their neighbor Aunt Zena, and about 5 other people from the building. Capitolina patiently chopped salads, washed dishes, and endured her mother-in-law's barbed remarks about how today's youth were utterly incapable of cooking. Last winter, her patience finally snapped. In front of all the guests, Elvira Markovna declared Capitolina a country bumpkin mouse, who should at least get a manicure because she was an embarrassment to be seen with. Dennis remained silent, engrossed in his phone. Capitolina swallowed the insult, but something within her broke. And then came the saga of the dacha. The old cottage in the settlement of Yasnaya Polyana had belonged to Capitolina's grandmother. It sat on a 600-square-meter plot, featuring a leaning gazebo, apple trees, and a well with icy water. Capitolina visited every weekend, tending to the garden beds, painting the fence, and replacing the roof tiles. It was her sanctuary, a place where her mother-in-law's irritated voice and her husband's silent judgment couldn't reach her. Elvira Markovna had long eyed the dacha. Initially, she hinted that it would be nice for the whole family to spend the summer outdoors. Then, she stated directly that since Capitolina was married to her son, the dacha was now communal property. Dennis agreed, saying his mother was right and there was no need to be selfish. Capitolina continued to visit alone in silence. In the spring, her mother-in-law attempted to use her son to achieve her goal. Dennis came home, looking grim, and immediately began. "Mom says you're not giving us the dacha keys. That's not right. We're family." "The dacha is mine," Capitolina replied calmly, without looking up from her book. "So what? You're my wife now, which means it's mine too." "Legally, that's not true. The dacha was mine before the marriage. We don't have a prenuptial agreement. It's my personal property." Dennis flushed. "Have you become completely stingy? Mom wants to plant some vegetables. She can buy her own dacha." The conversation ended with the slam of the door. Dennis went to his mother's and didn't return for 3 days. After that, a heavy atmosphere settled over the household. Elvira Markovna called every evening. Dennis gave monosyllabic answers, but Capitolina could feel the mounting tension. In the summer, the siege truly began. Her mother-in-law visited every Saturday, trying to tag along to the dacha. She'd whine about her back pain, saying she needed to rest in the fresh air. Capitolina politely refused. Elvira Markovna then changed her tactics, complaining to Roman that her daughter-in-law had become completely audacious and disrespectful to her elders. One day, Capitolina returned from the dacha to find that someone had tried to break into the gate lock. Neighbors mentioned seeing Roman's car. Capitolina said nothing, but the next day she replaced all the locks and installed cameras around the perimeter. Dennis exploded. "Are you out of your mind, hiding from your own family?" "From intruders," she replied coldly. By autumn, their relationship had completely deteriorated. Elvira Markovna stopped greeting her. Dennis spent more nights at his mother's than at home. Capitolina didn't object. She felt calmer alone. She worked remotely as an editor for a publishing house, earning about 80,000 rubles a month. She could afford not to depend on her husband. In November, Elvira Markovna convened a family council. Everyone gathered: Dennis, Roman and his wife Svetlana, and her cousin Irina. Capitolina was summoned for a serious discussion. "We've discussed it," her mother-in-law announced formally, "and decided that we'll all go to your dacha for New Year's. Fresh air, barbecues, the banya. Roman's doctor prescribed rest. He needs nature. Capitolina looked intently at her mother-in-law, then at her husband. No. No? What do you mean, no? Elvira Markovna's voice shot up. Have you gone completely mad? The dacha is mine. I haven't invited anyone there. Dennis, her mother-in-law wailed. Are you hearing what your wife is saying? Denise shifted uncomfortably. Kappa, it's family, after all. The dacha is mine, Roman interjected grimly. Greedy thing, probably hiding a lover there. Svetlana giggled. Kapitolina stood up and silently left the apartment. She turned off her phone at home and went to bed. For the first time in months, she slept soundly. In the morning, Dennis came for his belongings, saying he'd stay with his mother for a while. Kapitolina nodded. He left, slamming the door. A week later, a message arrived from Elvira Markovna. We're still going to the Dasha for New Year's. It's my right as a mother. Kapitolina deleted it without replying. On December 28th, she drove to the Dasha, unloading bags of groceries, a thermos of tea, and a stack of books from the trunk. She planned to welcome the new year alone in peace. She entered the house, surveyed it, everything was in place. She sat by the window with a mug of hot tea and suddenly thought, what if they actually come? Elvira Markovna was one of those people who never accepted the word no. She always got her way, through scandals, tears, or manipulation. Kapitolina recalled how her mother-in-law had forced Dennis to buy her a new television because the old one showed a poor picture, how she had extracted money for an urgent operation that turned out to be just a dental appointment, how she had convinced Roman to take out a loan for her renovations, and how she always got what she wanted. Kapitolina finished her tea and went outside. She walked around the property, checking the locks on the gates, the wicket gate, and the shed. She stood by the well. The cold December wind ruffled her hair. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. She returned to the house, retrieved an old hunting trap from the pantry, a huge, rusty contraption her grandfather used. Kapitolina had never understood why her grandmother kept it. Now she understood. The trap was heavy, its springs stiff. Kapitolina lifted it with both hands and carried it to the hallway. She placed it directly behind the door, carefully camouflaged it with an old floor rag, and cocked the mechanism. The metal clicked ominously. She straightened up, wiped her hands on her jeans. Her heart beat steadily. No fear, no doubts, only a cold clarity. Then she packed her belongings, locked the house securely, and drove back to the city. On the way, she stopped at a roadside cafe, had some coffee, and ate a cabbage pie. The waitress complained about small tips. Kapitolina left her 200 rubles. On December 31st, she woke up late. She made herself some cocoa and sat in front of the television. New Year's programs were playing on all the channels. Kapitolina watched absent-mindedly. A sense of anticipation lingered deep within her consciousness. The phone rang at 1:30 in the afternoon. It was Elvira Markovna. Kapitolina picked up the receiver and immediately heard a shriek. Where is she? I'll rip all her hair out. Kapitolina remained silent. Her mother-in-law was choking with rage. We broke down the door at her dasha. We wanted to celebrate New Year's there, and then... A trap. Your brother is in the hospital. I am not Dennis, Kapitolina said calmly. It's you. You did this on purpose. I didn't invite you. We'll put you in prison for attempted murder. This is my private property. You unlawfully entered. I was defending my property. How dare you? Kapitolina hung up. Her hands were steady. She finished her cocoa, opened her laptop, and checked her email. A message had arrived from the publishing house about a new project. 40 minutes later, there was a furious pounding at the door. Kapitolina calmly approached and looked through the peephole. Dennis and Elvira Markovna, both red-faced and disheveled. Her mother-in-law was shouting something, waving her arms. Kapitolina opened the door and saw them turn pale with terror. The entire apartment was empty, completely bare. No furniture, no dishes, no curtains, just bare walls and an empty floor. In the corner of the living room stood 2 suitcases and a stack of boxes labeled Charity. In the center of the room was a folding camp chair and a small table. On the table were a laptop and a mug. What? What is this? Dennis croaked. I'm moving out, Kapitolina said evenly. The apartment is yours, or rather, the mortgage is yours. The bills are on the table in the kitchen. I've paid my share until the end of the year. From now on, it's up to you. Elvira Markovna opened and closed her mouth like a fish. Finally, she managed to gasp. Is this because of Roman? It was just an accident. An accident is when you come by invitation, Capitolina stated. When you break down someone's door and trespass into their home. This is a crime. We're going to the police. Go ahead. The cameras at the dacha were installed in the summer. Everything was recorded. How you broke the lock, how you forced the door, breaking and entering. I'll also file a report. Dennis slumped. Kappa, wait, let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. I'll file for divorce after the holidays. Are you insane? Roman is in the hospital. His leg is injured. He shouldn't trespass into someone else's home next time. Elvira Markovna howled. I'll destroy you. I'll make your life hell. Kapitolina took out her phone, turned on the camera. Please repeat that for the record. Her mother-in-law fell silent. Dennis grabbed her by the shoulder. Mom, let's go. There's nothing for us here. They left. Kapitolina closed the door, turned the key, walked into the room, sat on the folding chair, and opened her laptop. On the screen was an advertisement for a rental, a one-room apartment in the center for $30,000 a month. The owner. She dialed the number. A pleasant female voice answered immediately. Hello, can I see the apartment today? Of course. Write down the address. Capitolina jotted it down, then called a moving company to pick up her belongings the next morning. Then she opened her contacts list, found the name Mom, and pressed call. Kapochka, Happy New Year, my dear. Mom, hi. Can I come to you for New Year's? What happened? Her mother heard something in her voice. I'll tell you later. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in about 3 hours. All right, my darling, we'll be waiting. Capitolina hung up, stood up, pulled on her jacket, grabbed one suitcase. The second would be collected tomorrow. She walked around the apartment one last time. Empty, clean, nothing superfluous. She went downstairs, started the car, and pulled onto the road. Outside the window, gray 5-story buildings flashed by, a few pedestrians with shopping bags, garlands on the lampposts. At her parents' house, the air smelled of pies and pine needles. Her mother opened the door and embraced her silently. Her father was sitting by the television, but stood up when Capitolina entered. Did something happen? I'm getting a divorce. I see, her father nodded. And rightly so. Her mother stroked her daughter's head. Go wash up, then we'll talk. That night, the three of them welcomed the new year. Her father opened the champagne. Her mother set the table. No one asked unnecessary questions. Capitolina sat on the old sofa, looked at the Christmas tree, and felt a heavy burden lift from her soul. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a message arrived from Dennis. You'll regret this. Capitolina deleted it without finishing. Then came much unpleasantness. The division of property, Elvira Markovna's attempts to seek compensation for her son's injury. Roman wanted to file a lawsuit, but his lawyer explained that the cameras had recorded the break-in, and then he could be charged. The case was dismissed. Capitolina rented an apartment in the city center and found a new job as an editor at a major publishing house, earning 120,000 rubles. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Dennis tried to claim the dacha, but the documents were ironclad. It was premarital property. In the summer, she drove to the dacha again. As she approached, she felt anxious, wondering if they would try to break in again. But no, everything was quiet. Neighbors said they had seen a car in the winter. Then an ambulance arrived, and after that, no one else. Capitolina opened the house. It smelled of dust and dampness. She threw open the windows, washed the floors, hung new curtains. She took the trap outside and buried it in the far corner of the garden under an old apple tree. In August, as she was painting the porch, a car pulled up to the gate. Capitolina flinched, but it was just their neighbor, Uncle Vitya. Capitolina Sergeyevna, you received a letter at the post office. I picked it up and brought it over. Thank you. The letter was from a lawyer. Elvira Markovna had filed a lawsuit for emotional distress. Capitolina smirked and placed the envelope on the table. She would call her own lawyer tomorrow. Towards evening, it began to rain. Capitolina sat in the gazebo, sipping tea with honey, and watched the water drum against the leaves. A message arrived on her phone from her mother. How are you, my dear? Well, I'm tidying up the dacha. Come over on Sunday for lunch. The neighbor wants to introduce you to her nephew. He's a good boy, works in IT. Capitolina smiled. Mom, it's too early. Nothing is too early. Life goes on. She put down her phone. The rain was subsiding. Somewhere beyond the trees, a crow cawed. Capitolina finished her tea, stood up, and went into the house. She still needed to attach some shelves in the pantry. A year later, she learned by chance that Dennis had remarried. Elvira Markovna was ecstatic. The new daughter-in-law turned out to be very accommodating. 6 months later, the accommodating daughter-in-law took all his savings and ran off with a lover. Elvira Markovna threw a tantrum. Dennis started drinking. Roman got divorced. His wife got tired of supporting him and his mother. Capitolina learned about this from a former colleague who lived in the same area. She listened and nodded. I feel sorry for them. Oh, come on, scoffed the colleague. After everything they did to you. Capitolina shrugged. Maybe a little, but not enough to matter. In September, she finally agreed to a date with her neighbor's nephew. His name was Kirill. He worked as a programmer, loved hiking, and barely communicated with his mother, who had moved to Spain with her new husband. On their first date, he asked, Do you really live alone at the dacha? Isn't it scary? No, Capitolina smiled. Not at all. And what if someone unwelcome shows up? She looked at him for a long moment. I have good locks. Kirill laughed. They ordered more coffee. The next New Year's, Capitolina celebrated at the dacha, not alone, but with Kirill. They arrived 2 days before the holiday, fired up the stove, and cleared the snow. Kirill put up the Christmas tree. Capitolina prepared duck with apples. At midnight, they went outside, stood by the gate, and looked at the black sky studded with stars. Kirill put his arm around her shoulders. Beautiful. Yes, Capitolina nodded. Somewhere, far away, music played, and laughter and shouts could be heard. Here, there was silence. The snow crunched underfoot. The frosty air burned their lungs. Capitolina snuggled closer to Kirill. Warm, calm, right. Shall we go inside? He asked. You'll freeze. They stood embracing, looking at the stars. Capitolina thought about how 2 years ago she had come here alone, set a trap, and didn't know what the future held, how she had feared their return, how she had slowly let go of fear and anger. And now, New Year's, a new person beside her, a new life that didn't need to be shared with anyone by force. Good, Kirill said quietly. Yes, she smiled. Good. They went back inside. Kirill added more wood to the stove. Capitolina poured wine into glasses. They settled into old armchairs, wrapped in blankets. Outside, snow was falling. Inside, the logs crackled. Silence.